Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's LinkedIn Live. I have yet another exciting guest. The hits just keep coming here. Krishnan Ramanujam, who is the President of Enterprise Growth for TCS, which is part of Tata, is with us today from Mumbai, India. So I really appreciate, with the time zone differences, making time for this. His job there is to really drive the vision and direction, the go-to-market strategy with enterprise customers. So they're guiding complex global transformation initiatives for the world's biggest enterprises. He's also the chairperson of NASSCOM, which is the premier trade body and chamber of commerce, really, for the $200 billion tech industry in India. And we want to hear more about that. So let me just bring you forward. Great. Let's do this. That's a little better. Thanks again so much for joining us today, Krishnan.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for having me on the show, Karen. And
Great.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you.
Yes, I've sort of settled on good day because I can never tell. Just so for those who aren't familiar, who are in the audience today or watching this later on streaming, can you just give a brief overview of how TCS, Tata Consultancy Services, fits within Tata?
Certainly. So, Karen, Tata Group, which is the parent body, is about a 150-year-old company. It was founded in 1868, and it is synonymous with the heritage and growth of India as a country. It's the most trusted and respected business group within India, and that is because over many generations, the Tatas have lived by the credo that the very purpose of business is to give back to society. And the manner in which they have practiced that is by creating this structure of the Tata Group is about 90 for-profit companies, of which about 30, a little over 30 companies are publicly listed. The others are privately held. So it's a list of 90 odd for-profit enterprises which are held by a parent group, which is a philanthropic trust, which is a Tata Trust. That's the broad organization of the enterprise. And the philanthropic trusts hold about 66% interest in the for-profit group. So when the businesses make their profits and send the dividends to the parent body, that in some form goes to philanthropic activities, not just in India, but all over the world, in every country where the group has business interests. So that's one of the very unique things that define the Tata Group. And TCS is one of those 90 companies which are publicly listed. And being a TCSer, I would argue that TCS has a strong claim to be the crown in the Tata crown, jewel in the Tata crown.
Yes, the largest gem. That's beautiful. I love this underlying purpose that would tie the organization together, no matter how large or how far apart you were. That's beautiful. So I know, Krishna, one of the key areas that you and your part of the organization are focused on is really driving growth and transformation. And I've heard you say that you sort of lead them to a more customer-centric model rather than an IT-centric model. What does that mean? What does that mean to you? And could you give an example of it?
Certainly, Karen. If I may, I would probably put it differently. Right?
Please.
Customer centricity is actually what defines TCS. Right? So that does not change. And I don't think TCS will ever change because we live and die by our customers. So that's what defines TCS. And so the customer centricity is a hallmark and a core, not only belief, but a strategy for the company.
Okay.
Within that, TCS, as you know, is a global leader in IT services, outsourcing, and so on, which typically are in the business of making our customers' businesses more efficient. Cost and optimization, as we would call it, right? That is where TCS made a name for itself. And over the last 50 plus years that we have been in business, we have grown to be a global leader in that business. the seismic shifts that the world saw, especially in the last 3 years or so, but more broadly over the last 7 to 10 years, has seen technology really more and more center stage in defining the business capabilities practically in every industry. So being a technology major, that provides TCS a great opportunity not only to drive efficiencies in our customers, but also equally as our customers try to reimagine their businesses. And technology is often at the center and the forefront of that reimagination. It puts TCS at a very, very advantageous position to also play in the growth and transformation of our customers. Right? So cost and optimization, growth and transformation. For any major enterprise, both of these are equally important. And TCS is already a global leader in the cost and optimization space. And now we have a very valuable opportunity to participate in the growth and transformation agenda for our customers as well. Right? But it is important to note that we are not moving from this to this. We are very good at this, and we're going to keep that and keep enhancing that, while at the same time add another engine to the aircraft. So it's a twin engine strategy, as our CEO Rajesh calls it, right? Cost and optimization as well as growth and transformation. And that is what we are focusing on.
Well, and those are the things that would continue to fuel your business through different ups and downs of the market. So
maybe I can explain with an example.
Absolutely.
So it was also in the recent quarterly results announcement that we made, Karen. If you take Ingram Micro, for example, they are the world's largest electronics reseller.
Mhm.
And when they are embarking on a transformation that sees them go from a very brick and mortar business of retailing and distributing electronics equipment, they're the world's largest retailer for Apple also. They are heavily dependent on a physical model of distributors, shops, where people have to go to the shop and buy the product and so on. From that model, they want to move to a completely online model, where their strategy is to shift their revenue from currently less than 10% e-commerce and online to 80-90% e-commerce and online. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll be a few years journey, but that's the system that we are helping build in transforming that Ingram Micro. So that will also provide many opportunities for direct-to-consumer opportunities, ecosystem plays, which are all going to define the future growth and transformation agenda for Ingram Micro as a customer. So that's just one small example. Similarly, there are mergers and acquisitions. There are customer experience-related opportunities. There are dynamic pricing in the case of retail. There are so many, practically every industry is going through humongous transformations led by technology, whether it is artificial intelligence, digital, IoT, analytics, so on and so forth. So, which is why it is very exciting, not just about cost optimization, but also about growth and transformation as industries and enterprises reimagine their strategies and reimagine their future.
Yeah. Well, and what an exciting time to be in this field, right? With all of the acceleration that's happened over the last couple of years, I think in part accelerated at least by the pandemic. So earlier this year, you were appointed as the chairperson, as I mentioned earlier, for NASSCOM, which is the Indian Trade Association for Business Process Management, which is pretty exciting. So I would imagine from both that seat as well as the seat that you hold at TCS, you can see the big trends and global transformation initiatives that are going on in the world. For example, industry headwinds, I would imagine, in the current economic climate over the last 6 to 10 months, cloud spending might be coming under heavier scrutiny.
Mhm.
What are the trends that you're seeing, any from a global standpoint, that you could share with us?
Sure. So, like I said, Karen, I would broadly group them under the cost and optimization and the growth and transformation agenda. Cost and optimization is fairly simple. Company is trying to make sure that they operate really, really efficiently, right, in practically every aspect of their business, whether it is finance, whether it is supply chain, sales and marketing. Any of those areas have to be as efficient as possible, and that's what cost optimization is all about. The more exciting trends I think our audience would also be keen to listen to are on the growth and transformation side of the enterprises, which is what is driving the growth and transformation agenda. But firstly, I would say that perhaps the single most important agenda that's relevant at the CEO and the boardroom levels, I would say sustainability.
Mm.
Every industry is now bringing sustainability as a priority to the forefront. So we are increasingly seeing companies putting sustainability as a key criteria, sustainability as a key agenda, not just as a matter of responsibility, but there is also sustainability as a key growth driver for their own enterprises. Is how many of them are reimagining that. So that's probably the first thing that I would put out. Right?
I'm very happy. Yeah, very happy to hear you say. Could you, just before you go on, just say a little bit more about how you're able to impact sustainability?
So we help our customers starting from the front end strategy. What does sustainability mean? What should you be looking at? And what are the parameters that you should be measuring yourself on, reporting on? Right? Two, defining a to-be scenario in terms of where would you like to go from a sustainability point of view. And there are some compliance aspects to it. There are some aspirational, good global citizen aspects of it. And we help our customers, firstly, understand and quantify their carbon footprint as part of their enterprise operations. And then we look at ways in which they can either to be state, what do they need to do in each one of their operations? What do they need to do in their supply chain? What do they need to do with their suppliers and vendors? And what do they need to do in their customer related operations? All of those aspects, we are able to provide them advice in defining a strategy and then follow it through with execution. Okay. That's broadly, we have a slew of about, let me just say, with north of 50 offerings, big and small, on the sustainability front, but it spans the entire spectrum of strategy all the way to execution.
Okay, got it. Okay, and so I interrupted you and you were counting off the trends. Other trends you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so sustainability is one. The second thing that I would say is the confluence of technology. It is not just one technology, right? Very often I get asked questions about which do you think is going to be the most impactful technology. It's very hard to pin any one technology because technologies don't operate, or rather at least technologies are not very effective when they're operating in silos. What becomes very powerful as a business influence is when these multiple technologies converge, what we call as the convergence of technology. For example, a combination of artificial intelligence, data, analytics, IoT, blockchain, and similar digital technologies as they are broadly called. A confluence of those are the ones that are creating a lot of magic practically in every industry. It could be dynamic pricing in the case of retail, supply chain transformations. It could be 5G related use cases across the industry enterprise, smart manufacturing. I can just advanced clinical trials, transformation of the clinical trials in the case of life sciences. I can go on and on. And 5G, energy transition in the utilities industry, 5G in telcos. Like that, there are a whole slew of transformations. Practically every industry is reimagining their future, which is made possible by these digital technologies, which was not a reality maybe 5 years ago or so, even earlier than that. So that is what is exciting. The convergence of technologies is probably the one that I would call out as the most significant trend that's driving transformation across industries.
Wonderful. Which brings to mind the move to the cloud, which is, I guess, in part a technology and in part something else. But I think about 2/3 of the world's IT is not yet on the cloud, which surprised me on the one hand. And on the other hand, it was like, well, okay, this is all new. What do you think the barriers are for people adopting cloud technologies?
Sure. So as you rightly pointed out, Karen, cloud is perhaps one of the most transformative now on the technology front to impact the enterprises. In fact, we in TCS call it the digital fabric. Right? So that the fundamental value proposition the cloud offers to the enterprises, there is no question about that, right? When you ask about what are the barriers, right? The barriers are really in the form of how we build a business case around it, how do we execute and deliver value on the business case, right? Obviously, as can be expected in any new technology with a lot of promise and potential, right? There is a lot of exuberance, some of it rational, some of it irrational. And that is where, over the last 3 to 4 years, a lot of practically every enterprise across industry spectrum have made cloud a core part of their IT strategy, right? So they have been systematically moving out of their on-prem data centers that they have been maintaining and moving on to the public cloud in some form or another. Like you rightly said, it's probably about 30-35% done is the best estimate that we have from the industry analysts. But the manner in which this has been executed for a variety of reasons, maybe it is a flawed strategy, maybe it is a flawed plan, strategy, planning, governance, change management. There are any number of reasons one could call it. But the manner in which these contracts or agreements got done was that a lot of the benefits were front loaded, right? What that also meant is that there is a lot of heavy lifting that's required for those
Yes.
benefits to accrue to the enterprise, right? Then what the enterprises found out 2 or 3 years later is that, say, for example, in any major enterprise, 500 applications should have been migrated in the first 3 years in their estate of about, let's say, 1,000 applications. They're realizing that they're sitting at 67 applications migrated, right? So the issue is one of execution and also strategy and planning, I would say, right? We have to be realistic in terms of what is possible. If the world was perfect, everything worked exactly as it should, and the moment we say cloud, if everyone in the enterprise would align behind that and say, yes, let's go to cloud and let's all move to cloud, that's not unfortunately how the world works, right? So for a variety of reasons, you can call it technology debt, you can call it a change management issue where not everybody agrees with the approach and strategy. So there is a lot of change management that will be required there, right?
Yes.
And there are a lot of non-standard technology estate things such as IBM mainframe, for example, which cannot go to the public cloud straight. So for a variety of reasons, it's not one or two reasons, for a variety of reasons, enterprises are finding out that the kind of business cases that they set out initially with are far too aggressive. So a lot of the focus is today shifting to execution. So, all right, we realize that it's going to be a reasonably tough job and it's going to be a hard grind. There is no easy solution to this, and we need to do that, right? So there is a lot of focus now on execution, which is where companies like TCS are a prime choice for our customers, because that is where we have excelled. We have proven ourselves in terms of our execution capability. So that presents a great opportunity for TCS to deliver value to the customers. And we see practically every customer of ours across industry spectrum putting the focus on execution and actually moving the workloads to the cloud rather than making more and more grandiose future visions and plans.
Yes. Well, that's it.
That speed will now pick up, and the 30% should keep moving to 40, 50 in the coming years.
Yeah, that's a great overview of the, I'd say, the major challenges that enterprise companies are facing today, right? Even once the hierarchical leadership gets behind this important and impactful and inevitable change, then you have to do the work. And as you say, there's the change management piece because humans are involved. There's all of the complexity of all the different systems that weren't built to go together, coming together. And you do need support and help on the execution front. Yeah. I'd like to talk for a minute, if I can, about the India itself. I recently saw a study from McKinsey that something like 18 million Indians will need to find new occupations by 2030. And the good part of that was that the studies indicated the emergence of new jobs with increased application of digitization, automation, pervasive application of AI and machine learning. I wonder, how is Tata and TCS in particular upskilling their digital talent?
Absolutely. So before I talk about the focus on talent and upskilling, in TCS more specifically, I can speak for TCS, and also I can touch upon the broader Tata Group, Karen. But the first thing that I would say is that I would recommend a book written by Chandra, the chairman of the Tata Group, a book called The Digital Nation. It is about India and how technology can be a major transformation enabler for India, given all of its huge population, lack of infrastructure, poverty, and so many other constraints the country has. How technology can be a phenomenal transformation enabler in making the company take a leap, skipping many of the development cycles the other countries took. So it's a very interesting book, especially if India is a subject of interest. You and yours, I would strongly recommend that book. Right?
Thank
What that book will tell you is that while, as the McKinsey report predicted, about million jobs being lost, that's one side of the equation. The technology that will transform the country can also produce perhaps 36 million jobs. Right? 5 years or 10 years later, the scenario that we're going to have in a country like India is probably not enough people, and it's very unlikely to be not enough jobs. That's the transformative power of technology. Over the last few decades, this has always been the fear, right? Oh, automation is coming, so people are going to lose their jobs, is always the thing that gets said whenever a major technology transformation is enabled. But then, yeah, it does happen. We do keep reading about some of those job losses and so on here and there. But humanity has infinite potential, right? Again, it's one of Chandra's favorite quotes that all of us quote all the time about, he says, there are only legacy technologies, no legacy people. Right? The human spirit is so powerful that for the person with the right attitude and the willingness to work, they can learn any skill, any new skill, and make themselves relevant for the future. For people with that attitude and approach to life, sky's the limit, and I don't think they need to fear job losses at all. So I'll stop my sermonizing at that point, Karen. And coming to the skilling, right? TCS is in the business of technology and consulting, and making technology and consulting come together in working to solve our customers' problems. The best thing about this industry and this company in particular is that technology is ever changing. Companies' problems, while they're very similar, they also change. So it's a very learning experience all across. People who work for TCS rarely do the same job or the same type of job for more than a few years at a given time. And that includes me as well. So what that also requires is all of us to be constant learners. If you take my own case, I began my career as an IBM mainframe COBOL DB2 programmer. Subsequently, I learned object-oriented technologies, client-server technologies, packaged implementations of ERP products, and so on and so forth. There are many, at least 4 or 5 generations of technologies that I've been able to learn and in performing my job, thanks to TCS's focus on learning and skilling. So there are a number of platforms that are available to TCS employees. In fact, many of their career progression and even salary goals are all linked to their ability to upskill themselves, getting the certifications and getting the practical experiences on those skill areas and so on. So we are a company that crucially depends on learning and skilling. So we have a lot of focus on that. But more importantly, the same principle is with the group as well, right? So there are a lot of initiatives that the group has taken for both their employees and also to drive education as a core theme under the philanthropic activities as well. So education and skilling are a very, very high priority item. In fact, the top priority item, both for the group and for TCS.
Yeah, terrific.
So there are many initiatives, Strive, Go IT, and many such initiatives that both the Tata Group and TCS have in place, where we educate our employees and skill our employees, and also we roll those programs out to the communities where we prioritize education and skilling.
Yeah, So important. I think you said, maybe this was in your NASCOM position, that the current industry in IT in India is like 200 billion, growing 15% year over year. So it'll be a $350 billion industry by 2025. Is that what I wrote? I mean, just unbelievable hypergrowth. And while it's not linear, the need for skills that go along with that, the need for people with skills is tremendous. So
That's right.
I'm really pleased to hear there's a lot of effort behind making that happen.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so our time is running short. So many things I'd like to ask you, but maybe just first about your leadership and your leadership style. You're leading a very large global organization. A lot of people who are sort of in my community are focused on leadership strategy. How do you go about leading such a large and diverse group successfully?
Sure. So the good thing about a company like TCS is that we are very, very strong on culture. Right? Until about a couple of years ago, more than 90% of hiring for TCS happened from the campuses. So what that means is that typically TCS would be the first job of the most of the employees. 90% of our employees, typically TCS would be the first job and perhaps the only job, which is true of me actually. Right? I've been with this company for 31 years. I joined the company back in 1991, and I've been here ever since. So when I joined, there were less than 2,000 people in the company, and today there are 600,000. So what that brings about is a set of values, practices, and equally importantly, what binds these values, practices, and culture is the fact that a lot of us grew together with the company. If you look at the top management team of TCS, let's say the top 50 people in the company, we are friends for 25, 30 years, right? So that in and of itself is a very, very powerful force, right? And that helps a great deal. You can put any kind of organization structure, you can put any kind of strategy, but at the end of the day, if there is a strong culture and bonding among the top management team, that is the most potent force, because that you can truly make things happen and you can work as a team, really. And that is what we focus on. So it's not about any individual, what is the management style of Krishnan versus somebody else. That's not how we approach it. In any large enterprise, it always will be a matrix structure. If it's just a 2x2 matrix, organizations are lucky. Very often, the matrix structure will have 3 or 4 dimensions even, right? In those kind of situations, there will always be intersections where there will be friction. So the management cohesion and bonding and acting as one team is so crucial, and that is what we focus on rather than anyone's individual style. That's what defines TCS, and perhaps the single most important reason why TCS is so successful.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Just a little of my history. I was part of the early leadership team at Compaq Computer, who at that time was the fastest growing company in American history. And that's what caused Compaq to be successful over time, was this, we had a product market fit, but the leadership and the ability of the leadership to work together and solve issues, because you're going to have them. But I can imagine the complexity of a matrix structure in a 600,000 person organization dealing with technology, geography, culture, and so on. So kudos. Yeah, kudos for getting that done right. Well, I want to thank you again for taking your time to be with us today and sharing your thoughts, and just wish you and TCS all the best. Please take good care. Thank you.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me, Karen.